Parents of Reddit, have you ever thought your child was dating someone who was too good for them? What happened in the end between them? When I was 16, I managed to get a pretty damn hot 19-year-old. We dated for 3 months and ended up being pretty good friends. We're still friends now. Maybe 5 years ago, I mentioned to my dad and stepmom that the 19-year-old just had her first kid. My dad said, we always wondered how you dated someone like that. You were such a goddamn dork. My mother often tells both me and my brother that if either of us leave our respective girlfriends, then we're out of the family and they're taking our places. Daughter too good for their son. Here. We dated for 5 years. For the last birthday I celebrated with them, Mom wrote in the card the equivalent of "Don't let my son hold you back." Edit, where she wrote it. My ex-boyfriend's mom literally said, "You can do so much better than him" to me once. In front of him. After we broke up. 3 years after we broke up. And we had just started dating again. And they were in the middle of a drunken argument in front of me. And it was the first thing she had said to me in 3 years. Safe to say it didn't last much longer after that. Edit, I'm getting a lot of people asking me if I stopped seeing him because of this. I didn't. The relationship ended not long after because of something totally unrelated but equally dramatic. Well, my brother's girlfriend is definitely too good for him. Or was. And this has been discussed by my mother and I. And she agrees. So what's become of it is my brother was once a felonious piece of shit that refused to hold a job despite myself or my mom hooking him up with the job in the first place. He sold coke in a local bar every night. Got it faced and cheeked up in said bar. And would frequently get in fights. Usually at that bar. Since he has been dating this girl, he has quit smoking cigarettes. Over a year now, maybe longer. He has also been sober for a year and a half. He doesn't do coke anymore either, but does still sell it to a couple close buddies. He has a job and also does his own thing, repairing and refurbishing gaming consoles. So it does have a happy ending in this case. They are very happy together, and I guess technically he is still a felon and some things will never change about him, but he is better at hiding his piece of shit tendencies and has really grown as a person. The first dude I dated was Chinese. And his mother would always tell him that he should find a better girl in Chinese while I was in the room. Little did she know that I in fact went to Chinese bilingual school for 12 years and am fluent in Chinese. So, I asked where the bathroom was in her native tongue. And after I took a nice dump in their toilet, she was a lot nicer to me. I was on the other end of this. Dating a guy whose mother thought I was too good for him. I lived with them for a time. And some days she would look at me all concerned and ask me what I was doing with her son. At the time, my favorite argument to all the people telling me things like that was, "I want him. So that makes him the best option for me." She was right. And I did leave him eventually. I still see his parents sometimes though. They were lovely people. I'd have been homeless for much longer in my younger years if not for them. My current so's mom hated me when we first started dating. So I was the bad partner too. She said I came with too much baggage and refused to acknowledge my existence for months. We've been together 8 years now. And her and I have grown close. Now I can't get her to stop talking. My brother heard his ex-girlfriend's parents speaking when he first met them. They were in the kitchen. He was gonna go in to grab some water but overheard them saying he was too good for their daughter. And that she'd ruin him. Funnily enough, the poor sod got absolutely ducked over by that heartless cow. And for a long time became the shadow of what he once was. She ended up moving away. And that gave him a decent level of closure. Now he has a new girlfriend and is doing amazing. Edit, there were insane grammar and spelling issues I needed to deal with. My entire family thought my ex was too good for me. They constantly spoke the world of him, and even when we'd been dating like 5 months. They all talked about us getting married. He is very smart. Polite. And cute, I guess. We only ended up dating for like a year and a half, but when I broke up with him shit hit the fan. They all just kept asking me why I couldn't make things work and how great of a guy he was. We broke up in August. And my extended family was still talking about him and asking about him at Christmas. Definitely makes you feel like shit when your own family won't believe you that the relationship was horrible and that the guy really isn't that great. Edit. My ex is totally a redditor and is probably gonna see this, sorry bud. My girlfriend in high school was way too hot by an order of magnitude as far as my league of dating was concerned. So hot that I'm convinced my parents let me get away with having sex with her because they knew it would never happen again. In high school I started dating this girl and her father said to me, "Why are you dating her? You are too good for her." I should have taken that as a sign. She was rich and it didn't end well. When my last boyfriend, overly confident sales guy, came home to meet my father, very quiet stoic construction worker, the two of them somehow ended up talking one-on-one, and by talking, I mean X talked about himself while my dad listened. X said offhand, "Well, you know, Sloane's too good for me," and without a pause my dad said yes. When I asked him about it later, he said, "I'm not a liar." Sister not daughter. He dated her for 3 years then broke up with her saying he didn't see himself marrying her. Everyone saw this coming except my poor sister. Few years back, I was hanging out with this girl who I was really into. Her parents were divorced and she lived with her father, who was a really cool guy who I got on very well with. One day she was out with her mom and got back a bit later than she meant to when we were supposed to hang out, so I was just chilling and chatting with her dad. He told me, "You know, Bundy, I know you care for her a lot. And I gotta thank you for being there for her. She was broken and you put the pieces back together while all I could do was watch. You're infinitely better than the last guy she was seeing and I really hope she sees that. But for your sake, don't wait around for her if she doesn't." In 1991 I was 17 and working for the local carnival at the time during the summers for fun, under the table cash and giving girls free rides on the scrambler. One cute girl invited me on a date. And her father met me at the door with a gun and said that his daughter had a headache and couldn't come out. Joke's on her though. I turned out to be really nice. A good family man. And a generally successful businessman. The carnival boss fired me at the end of the second summer because he said, "You don't fit in here. You should be running a business like this. Not working for one. Go do better for yourself." I look back on that day and wish I could go back 23 years and tell that boss thanks. He was old at the time. And probably dead now. But he was a good boss. Thank God for him. On the other side of this, though I didn't know they thought I was too good for him until we broke up. After the breakup, his grandma took me out to a really nice lunch to tell me how lucky I was to not be in a relationship with him anymore and how I would find a world full of better people. It made me feel better then and I still look back and laugh a little about it now, because she was right. My sister had that too good of a boyfriend for 5 years. Every time I could, I would tell him to run away from that crazy girl as fast and as far as he could. But he didn't listen. My parents probably felt the same way cause that dude was awesome as duck. She was so mean and condescending to him it was unbearable to watch. He didn't need that shit. He was better than that. And when she finally dumped him for no reason, he got drunk and almost killed himself driving his car, losing his license. He's now struggling to work without a car but he's freed. Now she's crazier than ever. Psychosis and shit. But he's finally freed. Freed but not healed. Poor dude. Saw it between friends. Girl with bio degree working in medical field. Other friend worked at a pet store. Sold weed on the side. And to his credit, started his own fish tank cleaning business that is actually fairly successful. Was not surprised when they broke up. The fish tank guy makes more money now. I'd imagine this would get more responses if you overheard your parents saying your girl boyfriend wasn't good enough for you. A lot of parents think whoever their child is dating isn't good enough. That would easily get more comments because it's more common. I know my parents met a few of my exes and went, "WTF does she see in him? He's a douche-nozzle," and then when I dumped the guy, I'd go on to find some other dude that I thought was perfect. My mom, in her crazy way, thought my boyfriend wasn't good enough. Also too good for me. She would tell me that I was too good for him because he didn't have a college education. Then he was too good for me because he was a really hard worker at a steady job. Then I was too good for him because he had tattoos. Then he was too good for me because I was so messy. And then I was too good for him because, well, her opinion really stopped mattering. Cause we were two imperfect people with our own flaws. And he broke up with me a month ago. My mom thought I was too good for him for superficial country club reasons. But in fact, she was right to think he was too good for me for the other reasons. At least right now. Cause he's got all his shit together. And I'm still struggling to start a career and get on my feet. I dated a woman who was way too good for me. And my mom acknowledged it. Does that count? I was in college, barely scraping by, and I took a year off to go volunteer in East Africa and find myself. Or I guess you could put it that way. Anyway, I met this woman who was directing a music festival I volunteered at. We really clicked for some reason. But I have no idea to this day what she saw in me. It probably helped that we survived an insane bar fight that turned into a machete fight together. Well, that's the TLDR version. That sheet builds bonds. She was a few years older than me. Had took college degrees and she had served in the US Army. She worked as one of the highest people at one of the biggest companies on the continent. She was amazing. Way out of my league. Anyway, we dated for just a couple months toward the end of my trip. I fell for her hard, but I don't think she was anywhere near as into me. When I left for home I was really bummed. I still think about her 6 years later. I've tried to contact her a few times to see how she's doing, but I haven't heard from her since the day before I left. I think I was just some fun for her, but it was a lot more than that for me. My parents had been married for almost 30 years, and when they were engaged my dad's parents separately on two occasions straight up asked my mom if they were sure she wanted to marry him. Being like 22 at the time, she thought it was because they didn't like her. It was not that at all. I love my dad, but he has some mental, learning, and emotional maturity issues. That means that even though he is going to be 54, he functions as a 15-18-year-old kid. That wasn't so obvious back then when he was 25-30, but it is now. My grandfather and my mother used to commiserate about how they were married to the same person. My grandmother is just as bad as my dad. My grandmother is wildly unaware of her own issues but recognizes my dad's problems and was trying to subtly warn my mother off. On my mom's side of the family, my uncle married a woman who is as lucky stays with him because he has a severely paranoid personality. Also, my grandmother is getting married to a longtime friend in April and he could do so much better than her. They are happy, but we already decided we are keeping him and getting rid of her if need be. I dated an ugly, not intelligent, basically criminal pillhead back in high school. I never really got the whole "you're too good for him," but I definitely got looks of pity from his family that weren't drugged off their asses. Those people were sweet. The rest didn't give a duck how he treated me because he had done it to so many other girls. The plus side is, a relationship like that really makes you appreciate a good one when it comes along. My dad likes my husband better than me. I guess I must have some sort of Freudian complex. Because my husband basically has the same personality as my dad. The second they met they were thick as thieves. They chat on Skype all the time. And this summer they're going on a road trip from the UK across Europe to Lithuania together. I guess it's fair though, because it's pretty obvious that my husband's dad likes me more than him. We're both more serious. And we both enjoy history and architecture. When he comes up to Scotland to visit us we travel around to all the old castles and burial sites while my husband goofs off somewhere. Actually, now that I think about it, my husband and I might have accidentally traded dads. Haha. My younger stepsister's ex-boyfriend was definitely too good for her. Not that she sets the bar very high for that. He was a sweet guy. He wanted to settle down and be with her forever. They bought a house together. They adopted dogs together. He's lucky they didn't end up having kids together. I don't know all the details as I'm hearing them all secondhand from my mom. But evidently my sister ran off with another guy during a manic episode. She's left him with a mortgage he can't pay on his own. It will probably end up in foreclosure. Apparently there's also been some domestic violence in the last few months. And to top things off, she's recently bought a gun. Jason, if you're reading this, be safe and stay away from her. You're better off. I was the daughter too good for the son. We were both early 20s. Dated for 2 years. His mum was super awesome. Came out as a les midlife after 5 kids with his dad. One day at his grandma's house, when he was being an antisocial, as per usual, she called him useless and introduced me to everyone because he wouldn't do it himself. She later warned me about his cold iron heart when he was out of the room when we came over for dinner one night. Looking back, she was trying to protect me, I think. When we broke up 2 years later, the first thing he did afterwards was drive over to his mum's house and spent about 3 hours there talking to her about it. Although I don't know what was said, I'm still grateful we broke up to this day. On the other side of the fence, my last relationship, I wasn't good enough for their son. I'm from a big family, working class background, and despite holding multiple degrees and having an excellent job with a prestigious company, his parents thought I wasn't well bred enough. They never even met me, but had decided because I had 5 siblings, was from a suburban town in another state, and my parents never graduated high school. I just wasn't good enough. I have lived overseas, am well traveled, conservative vintage dress sense etc. I even changed the way I spoke long before I met him. When I first moved to my current city because my accent sounded bogan chav trailer trash. Nope. I still wasn't good enough for their precious little snowflake who still lives at home. And it didn't help that I wasn't Jewish. We broke up because his dad started a fight with him about the fact that he wasn't mature enough for a serious relationship. He was 27 at the time.